50 million years ago, the land we now call India was entirely alone. It was a massive, isolated island torn away from its parent continent, drifting rapidly across the middle of a vast, ancient sea. Driven by powerful forces deep underground, this rogue landmass slammed into the Eurasian plate. The impact was so violent that the seafloor was crushed, and the sheer pressure forced the bedrock to erupt miles into the sky. That colossal wall of rock became the Himalayas. It blocked the winds that previously swept right past the region, capturing the heavy rain clouds. This triggered the monsoons, and as glacial meltwater carved out rivers like the Ganga and Yamuna, a dry, rocky expanse bloomed into a dense, fertile jungle. The stage was complete, a lush, river-fed paradise where the only thing missing was the presence of a human being. The early Indian jungles belonged to giants. To walk through those trees was to share the land with creatures like the stegodon, a colossal ancestor to the elephant, wielding tusks up to 10 feet long. About 1.5 million years ago, a new predator walked into this ecosystem. This was Homo erectus, our distant evolutionary cousin. They were heavily built, with thick brows, powerful jaws, and the muscular physique of an elite athlete, surviving on pure brute strength. Their primary tool for surviving these giants was a heavy, pear-shaped stone hand axe. They didn't have bows or long spears. They gripped these blunt rocks directly in their fists to hack, smash, and hunt in close-quarters combat. For hundreds of thousands of years, they ruled this land. Then, a threat woke up thousands of miles away. On the island of Sumatra, the Toba supervolcano detonated with such force that the blast echoed across the Indian Ocean. Within hours, India's blue skies turned pitch black. A thick blanket of toxic white volcanic ash rained down, choking the rivers and killing off the vegetation. The temperature plummeted, throwing the once steamy jungle into a freezing volcanic winter. The giant beasts starved, and Homo erectus followed. Their muscular bodies required a tremendous amount of calories to stay alive. Their heavy stone tools were useless for catching the smaller, faster animals that survived the ash. They also lacked the cognitive capacity to plan ahead or store food for tomorrow. Physical dominance failed against environmental collapse. The first rulers of India slowly suffocated in the cold and dark, leaving the subcontinent an ash-covered graveyard, waiting for a new kind of survivor. 65,000 years ago, severe droughts in Africa were pushing a different human species to the edge. We were physically weaker than our predecessors, but we possessed a more adaptable brain. We are Homo sapiens. Driven by hunger, groups of these early humans reached the absolute edge of their known world, the narrow straits of the Red Sea. Strapping together basic wooden rafts, entire families risked the crossing. Finding the Arabian landmass just as harsh, they adopted a strategy known as coastal migration. Instead of wandering inland, generation after generation kept hugging the shorelines, living off crabs and fish, slowly walking eastward until they finally breached the borders of India. The landscape they encountered was terrifying. The thick Indian jungles were crawling with lethal predators like leopards and tigers. Sleeping under the open sky meant certain death. They needed an immediate defense, and they found it in the Bhimbetka rock shelters of central India. These massive natural stone overhangs provided physical walls against the monsoon rains and a barrier from the jungle's predators. With a secure fortress and a roaring fire at the entrance, humanity finally had a moment to breathe. They stopped running and began to build tight-knit social communities. Securing food required a new approach. The slow, giant beasts of the past were gone, replaced by lightning-fast deer and birds. Trying to hunt them by throwing a massive, clunky stone was ineffective. To survive, they engineered a technological leap. They stopped smashing heavy rocks and started meticulously chipping them into microliths, tiny, razor-sharp stone blades. They bound these lethal fragments to long sticks. They had just invented the world's first projectile weapons to hunt fast-moving prey from a distance. Their resourcefulness extended beyond hunting. In modern-day Maharashtra, they utilized the massive shells of native ostriches. By carefully shaping these thick shells and drilling precise holes in them, they fashioned durable canteens to store and carry fresh water. As their daily survival became secure, their minds began to ponder deeper questions. They crushed minerals to create bright red pigments and painted the walls of their rock shelters. They drew scenes of hunts, dancing figures, and wild animals, the earliest evidence of abstract thought. Physical strength failed against the ash of the Toba eruption, but human intellect thrived. By reverse engineering the challenges of the jungle, our ancestors secured their place on the subcontinent. After tens of thousands of years spent following the seasonal migration of animals, humans stopped running. In the soft mud of the riverbanks, they began to push seeds into the earth, learning that the soil itself could provide more reliably than the hunt. This shift acted as an intense historical accelerator. Once people settled down to farm the valleys, small mud brick villages multiplied, eventually transforming into the massive Indus Valley civilization. These people became masters of urban planning. In the foundations of cities like Mohenjo-Daro, you find streets intersecting at perfect 90-degree angles, with homes constructed using bricks that share the exact same standardized dimensions across the entire civilization. Their civil engineering was highly advanced. They built the Great Bath, waterproofing its immense brick structure with layers of natural bitumen, and they designed fully enclosed drainage networks that cleared wastewater out of almost every private home. 5,000 years ago, while much of the global population was still living in scattered, primitive huts, the inhabitants of the Indian subcontinent had already designed and built the world's first smart cities. As we dig deeper into the plains of northern India today, the earth continues to yield secrets. In places like Sonali, archaeologists have recently unearthed the remains of copper-clad chariots and formidable heavy swords. These discoveries are forcing historians to take a closer look at ancient texts, providing physical evidence that aligns with the epic, sprawling conflicts described in the Mahabharata. Modern Indians carry the bloodline of these survivors. They face down volcanic winters, lethal predators, and the wrath of nature, relying on sheer intellectual grit to build a flourishing civilization from a harsh wilderness. If you appreciate documentaries that dig into the deep truths of history, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And let me know in the comments, which state are you watching this journey from today?